right? I'm going in there to test my metal, figure out where the holes are, and when there's glaring holes, it's like, okay, we need to patch that up because once you go pro, right, it's yeah, you're always going to learn, you're always going to grow, but you really want to hit the ground running at that point in time, right?
Hello, my name is Jamie Sparling, and welcome to the FormABLE podcast, where we talk about formable moments in martial arts training and formable moments in the lives of martial artists. Today, I have with me Mr. Kyle Zimick. He is a fighter with the local Rising Sun MMA gym. He's went pro. He's been on fire lately, and I've had an opportunity to wrestle with him a little bit, and he didn't absolutely kill me. So I thought, that's a nice guy. I think I'd bring him in. So without further ado, Mr. Kyle Zimick, how you doing, Kyle?
Good, good. Pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
It's absolutely my honor, man. I enjoyed training with you, and following some of your fights and some of the things that you're doing, and it's inspiring. Absolutely
I
inspiring,
appreciate
brother.
that.
Yeah, brother. So could you tell us a little bit about your martial arts background? Just some basic pointers, I guess, or
Yeah,
ideas?
absolutely. Yeah, I've been training now for about 8.5 years out of Rising Sun. Before that, I did Taekwondo as a kid. My mom had me in that by the time I was probably like five, I think.
Awesome.
I did that for a long time. And then when I was in the military, I had a group of guys that were either MMA fighters or did jujitsu or something. So even before training at the gym, like I had a lot of experience, or a lot for a beginner at least,
Yeah,
wrestled throughout high school. So the martial arts community has kind of always been in my system a little bit, you
sounds
know.
like it. Sounds like it, brother. So, I mean, since you were a kid, since you were a
Yep.
kid. So you were in the military, sir? That I did not know.
Yep. Yeah, I followed my dad. My dad was in the military, and then my grandfather was also in the army as well. So, growing up, it just kind of seemed like the right thing to do. So yeah, after high school, joined up. I did 3.5 years of active duty. Got stationed over in Europe for that. So that was a good life experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after that, I was wanted to get out and pursue a dream of being a fighter.
And you're doing it, brother. That's amazing. I mean, without stepping out, we can't do any of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like a good opportunity for me to learn a little bit, figure out the world a little bit, and just walk away from the experience with like, I mean, how many 19-year-old kids get to go live in Europe for 3 years? It's an experience that you can't take away.
Yeah, brother. That's absolutely amazing. I also didn't know, but I'm not surprised now that you wrestled in high school. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
that is such a fundamental, I don't, sport for MMA. I
Oh yeah.
know 10 years ago I was working with a gym and I was their striking coach. And at any given moment, if we found out that that kid had been wrestling since he was a kid, I would
Yep.
see the look in my guy's eyes immediately, like, oh man, that's it. That's just a
Yep.
different ordeal, and you were exposed to a lot of different disciplines, right? The
Oh yeah.
discipline of taekwondo, discipline of wrestling.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like the Taekwondo background, like it really teaches you like how to be fluid with movements and stuff and the discipline, especially the masters I had, including Master Tao, Coach Tao now.
Mm.
They instilled that discipline at a very young age for me, which was great. And then you transfer that to the wrestling where it's just hey, we're here to work hard. It's all about intensity. You're the hammer or the nail. You decide, right? And you learn how to just find that next gear that, especially like as a kid, a lot of kids don't really learn yet. They don't have
Yes.
that understanding of how to hit that next level where
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, it's not going to be the easiest thing, but you'll be fine. Mentally push through it, you'll make it work. So a lot of kids, I think they should wrestle. I think that is a fundamental thing that kids really should do.
Brother, I'm happy to hear you say that. I am a better martial arts instructor than I am a business person. And there have been a couple kiddos that I've had that I just said, I really believe that this kid should go wrestle.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll lose them and they won't come back. But when I see them 2 years later, that last piece of their confidence is there in a different way
Yep.
from just working so hard and all those things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, you own the gym, right? Like I'm a coach, so I do the same thing with like my kids and kids jujitsu is like there's certain kids you're like, okay, you need to go wrestle. Like,
Yes.
go figure that out. Because if you can make that work, you're gonna come back here and you're gonna be a little monster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just go wrestle, go work hard for a little bit.
So you teach kids too?
Yep, yeah, I have the privilege of taking over the kids jujitsu program. I did that probably I don't know 3 years ago ish now, maybe four.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I the head coach for that. I got amazing coaches underneath me. Coach Michael Gray, he's top tier. Like I'm gone a lot, obviously, fights, training camps, stuff like that. So it's like having a good backup behind me, where it's like I don't even need to worry. It's like, oh yeah, they're in great hands. It just really makes that program run wonderfully.
Mm-hmm. That's critical. That's critical because you have to be able to step away to do the things that you need to do in your career.
Right. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to have because it's like, we can just bounce each other, off each other back and forth. And it's like, sometimes even in the jujitsu world, it's like you're sitting there and you're like, man, I know this move, but I'm missing a key detail. And then, he's good enough to where he can be like, oh, you got to do this. And it's like, oh, yeah, thank you. Like, that's what I
Mm-hmm.
was missing.
Yeah,
So it's like, yeah, it's such a blessing having him, which I'm sure you probably have guys like that too around the gym.
totally. Absolutely. There are times when uh, I get to go out of town and go see my master, right? And
Yep.
my FNA martial arts is my baby. It's really hard to leave, but I do have, including my wife, a group of people that will take care of it and make sure, especially when a newcomer comes in,
Oh, yeah.
that's really hard for the general public to walk into some type of thing and especially a man, right? And say, I'm not really sure how to do this. And somehow I saw a lot of cowboy movies, so I thought I should be able to do all this. And you're like, yeah, me too. But I just get my ass kicked. And after a while, you
Right. Yep.
you just tell you make a buddy and get in there and screw it up really good, and things get better after that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you nailed it on the head right there. Like the amount of times I've had to tell people, like, look, the hardest day is the first day. Get your foot in the door, and it's easy after that. But like, I mean, I've had people, they hit me up on Facebook and stuff, and they're like, oh, I want to start coming. And they're like, oh, tell them the times and everything. And then it's like, they don't show up. So you text them, like, hey, where were you? And I was in the parking lot. I just couldn't come inside. And it's like, dude, text me. I will walk out there and grab you. Like,
At
but
least
I get it. It's very intimidating to show up to a gym like that.
For sure, and at least they're honest, right? A lot of
Right.
folks, I tell
Yeah.
my wife all the time, she's helping me teach now, and then we'll have people that are, I'm going to be there Monday, right? And I will it's always tell my wife, well, we'll be there Monday.
Right.
Don't be too upset if they're not there, because it's hard,
Right.
right? The
Oh yeah.
average bear work, what, 8, 9 hours with a commute, and then you're going to go and spend 3 hours in the gym. Like, you got to really love it.
Right. Exactly. And then if you got family, wife, and kids too, it's like now you got to take time away from them at that. Like it's not easy to get in there. So I get it, but yeah, it's one of the if you can get your foot in the door, it makes it 10 times easier.
Yeah, brother. So you got your foot in the door with Rising Sun before it was Rising Sun, right?
Kind of. So I actually, yeah, in a way. So Coach Law ended up taking over the Taekwondo program back when it was at the YMCA.
Hmm.
So yeah, I've known Coach Law since, I was, like I said, like knee high to a grasshopper. So I've always known him, but then, school sports kind of took me out of that realm a little bit. Obviously, I was my dad had me playing sports since I was, before I remember. Apparently, I was swinging a bat in the house. Like,
Good for
I
you.
don't remember that, but sure. So yeah, obviously, traveling sports, school sports, they take a lot of time up, and I think that's a very important thing too for kids to do. Not only for just all the skills you learn throughout different sports, but the social aspect can be really beneficial for a kid's growth, assuming he's in the right environment. Obviously, there's always negatives that come with that and negative environments, but if you get a good team around you, like it's so good for growth of a child. But yeah, so I knew Coach Law since before he actually became Rising Sun. So then when I got out of the military, it was like, yeah, that's exactly where I'm going.
That's great. And for our audience out there in internet land, when they say rising sun, or we say it's rising SON. All right,
Yep,
and
correct. Yep,
it's a praise towards the Creator Jesus Christ.
correct.
So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. I remember having a conversation one time with Law, and he was in New Jersey, and
Okay.
somebody saw his shirt, and they were like, "I know what that is. I know what that is," and you see the smile on his face. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how we ended up, honestly, with a cross on our Affinity logo.
Okay.
When I first
Okay.
moved
I
to
love it.
Yeah, when I first moved to Wausau, I went to Rising Sun, and I was fresh out of knee surgery trying to get back in martial arts, but they would do a submission wrestling and then they would do a
Yep.
spiritual development.
Yep.
So I
Yeah, which is still a class. Coach loves to say it's the best class and it's free. Wednesdays, come hit it up. It's really good.
It's absolutely amazing, and I did that up until the point when I was able to start my group. And
Okay.
then Wednesday nights just doesn't happen, but I always thought that
Right.
was such a cool thing. A really good coach, it seems to me, cares for their fighters,
Absolutely.
and he even cares about you guys spiritually.
Hmm.
That's a different type of thing than what I've seen, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, and like you just said, it really speaks to Coach Law's character
Hmm.
because it's like, how many gyms do you see where the average guy in there is like your angry young 20s, hasn't figured out the world yet, and they just need a place to blow off steam, right? So it becomes this place of like angry young guys who just want to hurt each other.
Bad
And it's like,
intentions.
right, exactly. And it's like, so Coach Law doing stuff like that has really just turned it to where it's like, I mean, you go there and it feels like a family atmosphere, right? Because
Hmm.
he cares about the character of everyone and he cares about your growth, physically and spiritually, mentally. Like, he does so much to help you out outside of the gym that it's like, I mean, it's just such a top tier place from a top tier guy. So, yeah, I love it. It's amazing.
only got only trained there maybe 6 times, but I've bragged on you guys to different MMA gyms because the camaraderie and the different things that you have there makes it
Hmm.
much more inviting for a lot of people, right? And it just
Absolutely.
so happens that some of the baddest men in Wausau train there. Just
Right,
so
right.
happens, right? You guys aren't there
Yeah.
to beat up on anybody or do anything like
I
that.
mean,
And I don't know. I just think the world of what you guys do over there. So, can you tell us a little about your amateur career leading into pro?
yes. Absolutely. So I had a pretty lengthy amateur career actually. I was 9-2 at the end of it. I was an AMI for probably 5, 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the first was a lot of just wrestling, right? I was a wrestler, I'm a grappler, right? So it was a lot of like learning how to really install that into the fight game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Found a lot of success doing that, right? If you're a good wrestler, amateur level, like it's not easy by any means, but you have a big advantage because it's like a lot of guys don't grapple. So it's like you can really just if you find a takedown, you can just smash dudes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then as it proceeded, right, it was like I remember getting a lot of coaches after fights telling me like, "Hey, when you going pro, you should go pro." And it's like me and coach were on the same page where it's like, let's make sure there's no holes in the game, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
experience everything in the game. Let's figure out where all the holes are, fix them up, and then go pro. So towards the end of my amateur career, it was really about like who's the toughest amateur? That's who I want to fight, right? Win or lose, like I don't really care necessarily. Like obviously you want to win, right? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going in there to lose, but the outcome isn't going to be as detrimental to me because I know I'm going in there for the experience, right? I'm going in there to test my metal, figure out where the holes are, and when there's glaring holes, it's like, okay, we need to patch that up because once you go pro, right, it's yeah, you're always going to learn, you're always going to grow, but you really want to hit the ground running at that point in time, right? You don't want to be the guy where you're the one trick pony because in the professional level, like especially nowadays, even the young pros they're killers,
Yes.
So it's like you can't have holes anymore. You can't be the one trick pony. You can't be a great kickboxer because they're gonna find how to beat you, and once they do, everyone's gonna do that to you.
Mm-hmm. So, how does one turn pro? This sounds like an ignorant question, right? But it seems like you were just approached by coaches to do it. So you
Mhm.
could have done it at that time, is what I'm getting. But you decided to go with law, and pick and choose. How does one go pro?
And this is the weirdest thing with this sport, right? Because most sports you have college, right? So you got to be a really good high school player. You go to college. Once you go to college, you go get really good in college, then you might make the pros, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
through drafting or whatever, right? I do know in some states, I think Wisconsin, last I heard, you needed 5 amateur fights
Okay.
to go pro. Obviously, there's exceptions. If you're Bo Nickel, for example, right? You're, 3-time NCAA champ. Like, okay, if we throw you in there against some amateurs, like it's not even fair, right? So you just hop into the pro scene, right? But I think for the most part, it's 5 amateur fights, and then the only real difference is you get paid to fight. So it's not like you have to earn that status or anything like that. And you get guys who do that, right? They quickly get their 5 amateur fights, and then they become like what I call paycheck fighters, where they're trying to fight as much as possible, take the least amount of damage, win or lose, they don't really care. It's about getting a paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which was never my approach, obviously, but yeah, so that's the real difference is like in this world, in this sport, as soon as you get paid for it, you're a professional. So there's not like a big like, oh, you have to go through all this stuff to get there. It just depends on how successful do you want to be at it. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the connection really happens.
One thing that I hear in that piece as well is you're looking for the most experience before you go pro.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like speaking back to my amateur career, right? It was really like I remember my last amateur fight was Abbas Abbasov. We knew he was good striking, but he really brought the classification of like he was ranked in the world at one point for judo,
Okay.
so it's like, okay, like this guy's legit like world class as an amateur. Like, I mean, that's great experience. Like if you can hang with that guy, right? It's like, okay, you're doing something right, right? So it was like those were the type of fights we were looking for, as an amateur. It was like, show me something that the amateurs don't have, and that's the guy I want to fight because he's going to give me the most experience, right? He's going to instill that, like, even in the training camp, it's like, oh, I can't take a day off because this guy is a killer.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you that fear almost that it's like, ooh, yeah, like let's go, man. I got to get ready for this one.
Yeah, brother. Sounds like a healthy fear, right? I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely, absolutely. You let it motivate you.
yeah, for sure. And so when you went from amateurs to pros, what was the number one thing that you saw in the difference? I mean, right now everybody can quote what they say in the UFC, which there are levels to this, right?
Absolutely.
I couldn't,
Absolutely.
I and I know sometimes in the arts I do, if I touch hands with somebody, I know immediately that they can have their way with me almost just off of
Right.
that contact, you
Yep.
know. So, what is the biggest thing that you noticed differently when you went into the pros?
Honestly, it's kind of weird because like the jump to pros, I didn't really feel it. I felt that difference like once I started taking the hard amateur fights,
Okay.
you know, where it was like, okay, you can't just beat these guys to basic positions, right? You have to be like a chess, right? You got to be thinking two, three moves ahead, right? I'm gonna do this because you're gonna do this, which is gonna allow me to actually do this. Like I don't worry about number one. I worry about three, four, five, right? That's what I'm looking for. But yeah, so I noticed that as an amateur, which I think really was really beneficial. Because yeah, like I remember what fight it was, but it's still true. Like I've never fought someone with a losing record, right? So like, you know, our thing at the gym is like we don't get easy fights. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people know that if you come from Rising Sun, you're gonna be good, right? So you're not gonna get easy fights. And that's always been true for my career. I don't get easy fights. So as an amateur jumping into the pros, like I never felt like that big, like, oh, you're a pro now. It was like, no, these guys feel like the last amateurs I were fighting, right? But it's like I'm already ready for it, so it's not a big deal. You know, even like I want to say it was my second professional fight. I ended up fighting a guy who was 5-2 at the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, out of Pittsburgh, and it was like you're 1-0. Like that's a fight that probably shouldn't happen. But because I was so experienced and already tested my metal, you know, it wasn't like a shell shock for me, and I was more than ready for the fight.
That's great. And it seems like that's, well, obviously what you kind of shot for by staying for a few more amateur fights, so you didn't
Yep,
feel that.
absolutely.
Would you recommend that to people that are looking to become a professional fighter, to stay in the amateurs, take a few more hard fights?
Yeah, I think it's very beneficial. I also understand that there's the time, right? You're an athlete, so you're on limited days here. Every athlete has their number. Hopefully, you can push it off. You know, you get guys like Randy Couture fighting into his 40s. You know, right? You know, they're anomalies though. So I understand that every athlete has a set amount of time that you can play with. So if you're jumping into the amateur scene at 29, 30, it's like okay, like maybe you know get the ball rolling here, right? But if you're a young 18-year-old kid, like take the time to develop because it's going to be so much more beneficial. You know, even like we get a lot of like young boxers in the gym,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to tell them that it's like go look at like the high level boxers, right? Like Triple G and those guys, like they got 400 amateur fights before they go pro. It's like, yeah, no wonder they're going to be champion of the world, right? Like these dudes have been dogs for their whole life. So it's like the amount of ring experience that they have. I mean, what are you going to do with like your 10, you know, 10 amateur bouts jumping into pros? It's like, dude, this guy had that many before he was six, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that experience and just that comfortableness of getting into there is it's so beneficial for, you know, younger guys.
Sounds like it. I remember last night when we talked, I told you about our editor, and he was telling me I should watch the show so I can give myself an honest critique. And I don't really like
Right.
to do that because, well, choose your hard,
Hmm.
right? And
Absolutely.
that's what you did towards the end of your amateur career.
Right.
Luckily you were the right age and you had all this experience, right? But you choose your hard so you didn't feel that piece. Because to someone who doesn't fight, a big jump, it seems like an infinite jump from amateur to pro.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it does like it's the wording, right? It sounds so different of like, okay, you're an amateur, but now you're a professional. And
Mm-hmm.
it's true to an extent, but you know, it's not as big of a jump as people always think.
Well, opinions over experience, right?
Exactly.
So much that there are times when we have an opinion over something. And I was talking to Sam Alvey about this because I love the Karate Combat. But when
Mm.
they put it on YouTube, and it's like I have an appointment. I'm still trying to watch it. It's on my phone, and there's all these comments that come in by people that I'm just thinking probably don't train. You're definitely not fighting, and the stuff that
Right.
you're saying right now is completely ridiculous.
Yep.
You know, Sam kind of laughed that one off too, as I could see you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even like after fights, like you go like my big thing is like after a fight, like I'm trying to get out to the crowd to go see my family like ASAP, right? Like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
like to do after the fight. But it's yeah, you'll get out there and there'll be the drunk guy in the crowd with this wonderful idea that, you should have tried to punch him in the face more. And it's like, thanks for the advice, buddy. Like, because that wasn't the game plan going into it, right? Like, so yeah, there's a lot of people, right, that know how to fight, and then there's people who actually know how to fight.
Mm-hmm. That is so funny. Many times we do the Filipino martial arts and we'll be doing like a structure, right? And I got my stick over here and I'm explaining that my hand goes here because the force is coming. And I know I'm
Sure.
open for the punch, right? And then someone will bring it
Right.
up and it's like, well, this is a martial art that's like older than dirt. At
Right.
some point, some genius did have to have the idea that you should try to punch him in the face, right? So
Exactly.
even if I don't know what the answer is and I can't do it, I'm pretty sure there's an answer there because that's
Always
not
is.
exactly
Always.
rocket science.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing, like, and like it's always funny like watching like jujitsu instructors too, because you see it a lot in like jujitsu, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like you'll be showing this specific move that happens at this specific time, and then there'll be like that one person who goes, yeah, but why don't they just do that? And it's like, because we're working this specific
Yeah.
moment. Yeah, but they could just do this. And it's like, I know they could. Like every move has a counter. Absolutely. But right now we're working this one. It's like, oh man,
I
too
think
funny.
I think sometimes we just want to outsmart the process because the process is
Absolutely.
you learn something, but now you've done it like 5 to 10 times. Well, now we need another
Hmm.
490 reps before we could really get into, well, what will he do next? And
Right.
that's hard. That's hard
Oh
for
yeah.
for people to have that understanding or to just give themselves grace because they want to do it perfect the first time.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen.
No, not gonna happen at all. You are also training folks as well. Am I correct, Kyle? You have your own
Correct.
business. Is that true?
Yep. Yeah. So I'm beneficial enough that coach allows me to do like private lessons and stuff out of the gym.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it's in my down times when I'm not training, it really allows me to just focus on being a full-time fighter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky enough, I'm blessed enough to where it's like I don't need to go work a 9 to 5 job. I have a great support system. And then having like the private lessons and stuff is like, yeah, you're not going to be a millionaire doing it, right? But you make enough to where you live within your means and you'll be totally fine. So, yeah, I do private lessons on Horizon Sun. If you're in the area and want to train, hit me up on my socials, or you can always just contact the gym too. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and just it's one of those where it's like training, you gain so much knowledge, right? Like that's why you open a gym, is because you have all this knowledge and you're like, I want to put it to use, right? I want to
Yeah.
teach
Want to
other people
share it?
this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like for me to have all this knowledge and then just sit there and do nothing, it's like, well, what's the point of learning all that knowledge? Like do something with it. So yeah, I'm blessed to be able to do private lessons, coach the kids' classes and stuff like that.
So when you do private lessons, do you work it more towards like an MMA with striking, more towards a grappling jujitsu? Do you work with what the client necessarily wants first?
and that's it right there. So I make sure that I like get real specific with it. Like, what do you want to learn, right? Do you want to learn jujitsu? Do you want to learn boxing? Are you looking at MMA, self-defense, right? I've had a lot of, women come in and want to do like self-defense and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's essentially what MMA is, right? Like, break a few rules and you just took a sport and turned it into a deadly self-defense. So yeah, I do stuff like that. If you just want it to be a fun way to work out, right? With somebody there to push you a little bit. I can do that too, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it really caters to what the person wants it to be. And then I just work within those means and try to make it as fun as possible while at the same time teaching them a new skill.
Beautiful. What do you find folks come to you for the most? And what kind of folks come to you? Right? And I understand it's probably all over the spectrum, right? But in my head it would be like, well, maybe there's a fighter and he's like, I want to work the double leg takedown. I can get to the first leg, but I can't get to the second leg very often. So that might be one thing I want to come to you for. So what do you find yourself teaching the most?
Yeah, when it comes to like stuff like that, I find it to be more of people who are already taking the classes,
Mm-hmm.
but more than likely they understand like they work better in a one-on-one environment,
Mm-hmm.
so they want to like really get like specific, right? So if they're a boxer and they're like, I mean, I'm doing good in the class, but like I'm just not seeing the growth I want. It's like, okay, let's spend some time and really break stuff down. I get that with a lot of kids, jujitsu kids, they're like, the class is great and all, but just sometimes because there's too many kids in there, like you don't get that one-on-one,
Mm-hmm.
environment that some of these kids absolutely need. I was one of those kids. If you're not helping me one-on-one, like forget about it. So I get a lot of those, but for the people who are just coming in, I would say I probably get more of they're just trying to learn a new skill. I would say most people are more comfortable with the stand up actually. Grappling gets this weird connotation of like, oh, it's hands on. So I get it, but so more people I would say do the striking aspect, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll get some that want to come in and learn how to defend themselves on the ground. Absolutely. So,
So mainly, right now, it's a good majority of Rising Sun clients that just
oh yeah,
want to work on a specific thing.
yep,
I noticed earlier when you were talking about a technique, and you're like, there's a certain detail piece, right?
yeah,
Uh, and as a good teacher, I try to give as many of the details as I can. But what I find sometimes is, unless this is going to sound horrible, but sometimes a beginner isn't ready for that detail. If they think that is like the, oh, right, that's the moment, is the
right,
detail. Well, there are five
yes,
things you needed to do before the detail really mattered in the
yep,
fundamentals, right? And so,
oh,
in the
spot on,
midst of it, so that is a piece that, you know, would make a lot of sense to transition people into a private lesson, because at that moment we can get more detail oriented, right? But also talk about, well, that's great. And at my class, we have a joke: is it palm up or is it palm down? Well, first we got to get the target. If I don't have my hand on his elbow, it doesn't matter if it's palm up or palm down.
right,
How tall is he? What angle is he?
right,
Is he on a hill? Now we're just
right,
whatever this is. So right now our job is check the elbow. Otherwise
right,
he's going to be able to get you. Palm
yes,
up is preferential because I could shift him, but I got to get my hand on him first. Otherwise, it's not.
right,
Doesn't necessarily matter.
yep, yeah. Well, and you hit it on the head right there too. Like, especially teaching the kids, like sometimes I know I get caught up with it, and it's like you try to teach them like adults, right? Where it's like, hey, these are all the details, and it's like you break out, they work on it, and it's just like that is not how I saw this going at all. So you bring them back in, and it's like, okay, let's slow it down, do 3 steps. This is what I want you to
Yes.
do. And you just ignore all the details and just do these steps to get the movement, right? Learn the movement of what it should just like, what it's going to feel like starting, how's it going to end.
Mm-hmm.
Figure that out, and then we'll get to details because, right, it's like sometimes like you expect them, like, especially because I come from a wrestling background, right? I've been even teaching adults, and you're like, oh, well, just, do this, just circle real quick, and then you take their back. And it's like, because I've done it, I don't need to explain the 10 extra details that I'm doing in there. And then you teach it
Mm-hmm.
to someone who hasn't wrestled, and they're like, I don't get it. You're like, yeah, we need to slow this down a bit, right? Like, don't worry about the details
Mm-hmm.
until you're ready for them.
As I'm talking with you, and I'm going to write this down, what I in teaching is like fundamentals to details. Because a lot
Mhm.
of times, martial arts is one of those things where, especially in the older generation, I'm 50 years old. We grew up when we were teenagers. There was no UFC. It was all kung fu movies that had
Right,
some tale of a person. It was the hero's journey, right?
right, exactly.
Consistently, and you're looking for somebody sometimes who's a Miyagi who could give you those details. But it's like, well, first of all, we
Hmm.
got to. Are we hitting the pad? I don't want to be a bad guy, but we
Exactly.
got to hit the pad first. Well,
Yes,
yeah, but I'm going to hit him. I know, but it's roughly in the shape of a head. If we can't hit the pad, we
right,
probably can't hit the guy.
right. So, exactly. Like, like the amount of people out there that, like, you look even boxing, right? It is so hard to actually hit someone in boxing. Like, if they don't want you to hit them, you're not going to hit them,
Not
right?
clean.
Right. And it's like people have this idea because you've watched, the movies and stuff that, like, oh, you just got to throw one big punch. And it's like, it's not how this works. Like, there's so much involved with just a simple, I'm going to hit you in the head, right? Like, it's not simple. So
No.
it is funny because it's like, right, let's break this down. Can you can you even get your hand up that high? Can you get your foot up that high, right? Like, because if you can't do that, what are we doing here? Like, let's not worry about hitting them yet.
Exactly. We're just going to get the start piece then.
Right.
Kyle, interesting question. When I was talking with Sam, I had brought up like he does different boxing training, he does MMA, whatever, jujitsu, but he separated everything. So when he just does boxing, he only works boxing. And then he's only working this. And then later he would bring it in maybe in camp, but he kept things separated. And I just thought
Yep.
that was absolutely fascinating. What is your take
Mhm.
on that when you're
It's
preparing or
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what I do. So at the gym, we have boxing class, we have Muay Thai, we have Jiu-Jitsu, right? And now we also have MMA class twice a week, which is a lot of wrestling because the other classes don't have that wrestling. So like
mm-hmm,
MMA, you gotta keep up with it, right? So we do a lot of wrestling for that class, but it does implement everything. But yeah, so I separate as well, and it's focused. It's like, okay, so this time we're working boxing, right? This time we're gonna work jujitsu. Um, and then as you're doing them, it's on you to kind of make the connections of like, okay, so if I'm boxing, I can throw this combo and this footwork works, right? Or I can duck this way, I can slip this way. But you got to keep in mind, like, okay, if I do this slip in boxing, I'm safe. If I do it in Muay Thai or MMA, I might end up looking, like Kamara Usman, Leon Edwards, right? So it's like you gotta, as long as you understand the details there, you can do that. But you just gotta make sure you're keeping in mind of like, okay, so jujitsu, this guy's holding me down. Okay, well, MMA, you're not doing any damage, right? So yeah, you can hold me here, but as soon as you posture up to do something, I would be gone, right? So don't get frustrated when it's like, oh man, this person just beat me up. And it's like, okay, but if it was MMA, would you have, right?
mm-hmm,
Or, they're 2-on-1 on your leg and they're working leg locks. Like, that's great. You got to know all that stuff. But in MMA, if you put two hands on one of my legs, I'm going to put your face through the canvas, right? So it's like, as long as you understand the difference, I think separating those classes is super beneficial.
that's really great to hear. we do different arts, and I've always taught them differently. And I have my very first white to black belt curriculum now. Never promoted a
Okay.
black belt. My wife is a purple, and that's the highest I've ever given, and she's been with me for 8 years.
Okay.
So we're still working on that piece. So almost all we do now is integrate everything together.
Sure.
You know,
And I think it's, because like the gym like actually used to do that before I was there. They had, they would just do MMA, right?
mm-hmm.
And then they would work on different things, different months, right? Even certain gyms I've gone to and stuff, it's more integrated. So I think there can be a lot of success that way. I think it's one of the fun parts about like the martial arts community is there's no set rule on how to do stuff, right? Like everyone's gonna have their own thing, and you can find pros and cons for each. I can show you total failures for each, and I can show you total successes, right? So it really boils down to like the gym itself, right? Like what gym are you gonna be and hope for the best, right?
I like the way you said that. I was telling the students the other day, martial art is this beautiful thing where it's one of the only things in life where I can have two people that can give me two completely different explanations. And
Yep.
if they're really good at what they do, both of them can slap me around with their explanations.
Right.
So who's
Right.
right?
Both are right.
They're both
Right.
right, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's one of those wonderful things where it's like experience over opinion, like trying to
Right.
get those
Yeah.
experiences.
Right. There's no set way. There's no like, no, you have to do it this way. It's, you can look out and like, okay, like this is the result we want, and we see more success doing it this way, right? But I mean, you even look at the shift of especially MMA, right? It used to be tough guy competition, right? So all
Totally.
the training was, let's throw down, right? Let's just toughen each other up, right? And then all of a sudden you started seeing the shift where it's like, okay, like we're not here to hurt each other in the gym, right? The common phrase is like, you don't lose your brain in the fights, you lose your brain the wars in the gym, right? So you're seeing this big shift now of it's like keep it playful, right? That's what I've heard from a lot of gyms is keep it playful, right? When we're sparring, I'm not there to hurt you, right? We're there to grow and learn. So keep it playful, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're just touching, right? We're working each other, right? And it's like if I hit you and you get a bloody nose, that's on me. Like I was going too hard, right? Like that shouldn't happen. You should be comfortable if I hit you in the head while you're trying to do something. It's not a okay, I don't want to do that anymore because now I'm in survival instinct, right? I want the response to be like, okay, I got hit doing that. Let's change it up a little bit and try it again, right? And if I get hit again, okay, right, not a big deal. Then I'll just change it again. So it's right. It's one of those where there's so many different ways to do this, and that's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, and it's technology. It's living. It's
Mm-hmm.
living. It's living technology. It all fits together, and it has to
Right.
fit in the moment, which is like sometime a seventh of a second, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just so
Right.
at that particular moment, you have the right thing or the wrong thing, or however all of that looks like.
Yeah.
Kyle, what's next for Kyle Zimick?
Moving forward, the plan is going to be I'm going to change some stuff here a little bit. I'm coming off of a loss. So I've always been big on like, if I take losses or something, right? Like, don't be the definition of insanity, right? Do the same thing over and over, expect a different result, right? Why would you do that? So I've always been big of like, when I don't get the outcome I wanted, I'm going to change something, right? Whether it's a really big change, very minor change where you're like, okay, just got to patch some holes, right? Um, so I'm gonna be changing some stuff around. Even like after my last fight, last professional loss, ended up like it was okay. Now I got to start going places, right? Like the gym is great, but I'm not always getting the look I need. So after I took that loss, I ended up, thankfully, my parents and my sister live out in Colorado.
Nice.
So I'll go out there, stay with them, and then I train at a high altitude, which, they're big name guys out of there, Justin Gaethje's out of there, Corey Sandhagen, Kamaru Usman will go there. So it's like, there's some big names out of that gym, right? So it gives me the chance to go and just get beat up again, right? Become the student, become the nail, and just don't got to worry about being big dog. Go learn. So that was a big change to my career, which has been very beneficial. So yeah, after this loss, again, it'll be changing stuff up, whether it's the amount I'm doing, how I'm training. Um, yeah, there'll be some changes coming, but again, right, that's how you get better. That's how you continue to grow. And then yeah, moving forward, it's going to be get back on the horse, hopefully get back on a win streak. And, I'm hoping to rattle off 5, 6 wins here in the next year and a half and go from there. Hopefully I'm good enough to get that shot at the UFC one day.
Yeah, brother. I think you are. And I mean, this the other piece that, so you just came off a loss, but you were on a win streak for a while,
Yep. Oh,
right?
yeah.
So at these moments when something happens and you look at doing some change ups, you don't really want to change the whole thing because a lot of it was working for you, correct? So you're just
Absolutely.
looking at specific pieces.
Yep. Right. And it's one of those where it's when you're making changes, right? It's again like don't change the whole process, right? Especially looking at that fight, like the fight itself was going pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was controlling it pretty well, and then I got caught. It's MMA, right? That's what happens. It's part of the game. So props to that guy. He pulled the trigger when he needed to, and then every follow up shot was right on the money, right? I'm not going to take that away from him. It was a great sequence for him that, ended the night early. So I don't look at that and go, oh, total failure. I did everything wrong. It was like, no, I was doing the right stuff. You just got caught, right? So I don't need to make like, okay, scrap everything we did. It doesn't work. No, absolutely not. It's what went wrong in the moment. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again, right? And then if we feel we need to make other changes, well, let's make them and go with it, right? And just test it out. And that's the beautiful part about competition, right? Is people get so caught up in the mindset of it's win or lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially professional because money's on the line. And it's true to an extent, but competition really what it boils down to is just it's giving you the chance to test what you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you against someone, but at the end of the day, it's you against you, right? Because you're going to test out what you do. And if it works, it works. If not, well, back to the drawing board, right? But then moving forward, you have an understanding of this is where I'm at, right? So when a year goes by, it's, the coach was actually talking about it last night. So ironic. Can you beat up the person you were a year ago, right? And if the answer is yes, well, then you're successful, right? There was growth that happened, and that's what matters.
That's beautiful. That was from Coach Law.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna write that down. I gotta steal that. Okay, that's good
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
That's
Hey,
good stuff. And
right.
martial art, it's so important. I mean, as a fighter, you got a lot of things coming at you, but as a martial artist, like, well, I didn't get my black belt, or I didn't whatever. I didn't maybe win a competition, but yeah, I think I could take the guy I was 6 months ago.
Right.
That's a beautiful way
You
to
know,
look at it, brother.
right. And I think that goes into, it's obviously more clear when we're talking fighting, when we're talking martial arts, right? Because there's a physical outcome there,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I physically beat you up, right? But that can go into so many different things, right? Like you look at your typical job force, right? Like, hey, I didn't get the promotion this time, but now I have a very clear understanding of what they're looking for, right? So I can take the next 6 months and I can become that person that they want to promote. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, you're not beating yourself up, right? But I'm a better me in the long run, right? I'm better at the systems that are in place, right? I'm better at understanding how to talk professionally, right? Like whatever it is, you get a better outcome. So it's like if you can grow yourself and have that understanding of it's just every day I get better, it'll take you a long way in life.
Yeah, brother. And it's percentages too. You know,
Hmm.
everything is a percentage, even when it comes down to like, is this good or bad? A lot of times
Right,
it's a percentage. There's a lot of things that are going on. You know,
right.
some injuries, right? Doing martial arts for 25 years. And sometimes when people hear that, they're like, well, not sure I wouldn't necessarily do that. And I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of guys
Hmm.
that are 50 years old that were in great shape that when I was in high school with them, and I'm in better shape than they are now. And
Hmm.
sometimes getting off the couch can just be really hard as you get older
Oh,
for
yeah.
whatever. And I mean,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not crazy old or anything, but when the 5-0 rolls up, you're like, holy shit, that's a thing. It's a thing, you know.
Right.
But most of it is percentages. Look at your last
Absolutely.
fight. You dominated for 95% of that fight. We watched it
Hmm.
this morning, had him down, takedown, smushed him in the cage. Everything was
Yep.
absolutely money. And this is just this beautiful thing and a beautiful train wreck that all you got to do is zig when you should have zagged for just a minute. And the whole
Yep.
thing's crazy.
Yep. It all comes crumbling down. Yeah. And that's honestly, I like to tell people that, like, when it comes to MMA, it's like, when people are asking you, like, oh, how do you feel about it? Like, are you, blah, 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 right? I like to tell people, like, at the end of the day, it's like that's what makes MMA fun is a lot of ways to win a fight, a lot of ways to lose a fight,
Brother.
right? So if you're not perfect on the night, it might be a short night for you and you might not be the one with your hand raised. So yeah, that's what makes it so fun though, is that risk involved where it's like, we're all in, man. We're not playing the long game here.
Well, the punch is the truth, right?
Hmm.
At that moment, whether I can say, well, it shouldn't have looked like that, or it should have looked
Right,
like this, or whatever it is. After I get up
right.
off the ground, I get to get up and tell you that. But you still put me on the ground. Like, you know what I mean? At that
Exactly.
moment, I don't know, that might not have been like the most awesome punch, but it was awesomely timed. That I know.
Right. Right. Well, and you hear that too, right? Like, oh, it was a lucky punch. And it was like, I mean, the guy threw it with that intent, right? So is it really lucky, or was it just the perfect decision making at the perfect time with the perfect angle, right? It all comes together sometimes. So
Percentages.
it's right.
Could be a percentage
Exactly.
of half of that, right? But when
Right.
people talk about the lucky punch, like, that's a bar fight.
Right.
That's not what you guys do because there's too
Right.
many hours of sharpening the blade before you're even going in there, right? And
Right.
a tin of luck can't hurt, but come on.
Right. Yeah. And that's right. That's sports, right? There's always that luck percentage, if you want to call it that. But, and like, I get it, right? Like you just close your eyes and throw your hand, and it's like, I mean, sure, if you want to look at that as lucky, sure, I get it. But it's like, it's not full on luck because you still made the decision of, I'm just going to wing this and hope for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So, sir, do you have anybody that you could recommend that has a good story? And it doesn't have to necessarily be a fighter. I get a lot of martial arts instructors, my friends from all over the country and, across the pond over in England. And,
Hmm.
but I'm always interested in talking with people, and this has been just an excellent conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually know a few. Obviously, Coach Law, if you can get him on the show, he's a wonderful guy to talk to.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
done a lot, seen a lot, been in the game a long time, so he's definitely somewhere where it's like someone who you can have a conversation with him. I don't think I have ever had a long conversation with him and not left going like, wow, I really took a lot away from that. Like, I'm better having that conversation now. He's very good at giving you that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think a lot of times you do become a better person. But yeah, I mean, my friend Terrence Marquardt too.
Okay.
I didn't even ask him if I can give him the shout out, but he's got a great story. He's a great, great guy up and coming. He's always a fun conversation to have. Yeah, I would say those two are really. really good opportunities.
I really appreciate that, Kyle. Master Tao has been on my list. And
Hmm.
so that, and I will definitely add Terrence because I've had been lucky enough to have some nice conversations with him, just a little bit here and there.
Yep.
Yeah, and I brought my son in to box for boxing class there at Rising Sun, and
Okay.
he was trying to figure out. It was right at the point where he's going to get a job, but he wanted to
Sure.
try boxing, and he said that Terrence Marquardt threw a jab so fast right in front of him that he couldn't see it.
Yep.
And he was like, "It was so fast, Dad," and I was like, "I don't doubt it. I mean, that's what he does." And at the
Right.
time, we were talking about, what competition would look like, right? And
Hmm.
well, then maybe we take you to a competition gym, and it's just it can be a different
Right.
gig.
Yeah.
But Jordan really enjoyed that time with Terrence, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So another
Terrence
question:
is, yeah,
What were you gonna say?
he's a great guy to learn from. Like he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. But comes from a different background and just like right again, we get back to the wonderful part about sports and martial arts, especially, is like he comes from one background, I come from another. We do the same thing, but the way we will explain it is so different because of how we understand it, right?
Yes.
And it's like, you get the same outcome at the end of the day, but like math, sometimes I could explain a math problem, you're like, I don't get it. Somebody explains it quicker and doesn't give you all the details, and you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. You're like, that's literally what I just told you, but sure. Okay.
Then there's the timing too, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
us as teachers, we're both saying things, right? But the
Right.
student, like I think there's a time when the student's supposed to get it, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's got nothing to do with us, right? Like
Right.
out of the middle of nowhere, the light clicked, and now
Yep.
they got it. And it's really funny
Right.
when that happens. I'm sure this happens to you. They'll come over and say, now that makes sense, or whatever. Or you might hear Terrence explain something that you've said
Right.
95 times, but he
Yep.
explained it different, and all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, that makes total sense. And you're like, but it's
Right.
the same thing I said a whole bunch of times.
Yep. Right. Like
Man,
it was even like when I started going out to Colorado, I came back and I was talking to coach about like some of the stuff I learned and new stuff that I want to really start implementing. He's like, yeah, I literally showed you that years ago. And he's like, but hey, as long as you got it, that's all I care about. I was like, yep, funny how that works.
that's a good coach, too. Because a lot of
Hmm.
coaches would be salty because
Right,
they
right,
said it, right? But, end of the day, oh, that was Kyle's day to get it. Cool,
right.
right?
Exactly.
That's the most
It's like, yeah,
awesome thing.
if you have to go out and get the knowledge from somewhere else because the way I'm saying it just ain't clicking, like go get out there, go do it, you know. And right, I mean, and that speaks to coach too because he really like I remember like the first time I went out to Colorado, it was literally because my sister's husband owns a brewery out there. And he's like, hey, we had an incident happen. Can you come out here and just teach self defense? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Right. So I remember talking to coach and like, hey, I'm going to go out there for, a week or two or whatever, or like for a week and just, do some self defense stuff. And he was like, stay out there for 2 weeks, go train at a gym. He's like, go get different looks. Like, yes, go away for a couple weeks, like, please. So it's like it really shows that he cares about me, right?
Hmm.
Because he could have been the guy like, no, you have to stay here. Like, how dare you want to go do stuff? But it's like, no, he cares about my growth and he cares about me as a person and he wants me to go get that experience.
Not at all surprised. That's how he struck me from the minute that I
Yeah.
met him. Uh, but you never know. Sometimes when folks are going to different gyms and stuff, that can affect people's pocketbooks, and they get weird, right? And it just
Right.
like it,
Right.
and I understand, like, as now being an instructor, that's my livelihood. But
Right.
if I try to control somebody's experience, I'm really not like doing them a service, and I'm not that good of an instructor. I'm more worried about me than I am them.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, it's about them, right? Like, yeah, they're coming to you for the knowledge, but it's about them. It's not about you.
Exactly, exactly. Brother, sometimes we ask an instructor or a fighter or something like that, like an action step piece of advice, right? And what I like to do sometimes is think about something that somebody can do in the next 24 hours, whether it's maybe stretch, go to the gym, anything, because the long term stuff is
Hmm.
hard to commit to. But if somebody's like, wow, I just watched this Kyle Zimick on the FormABLE podcast, and I really wanted to do something different. But if it's a week long program,
Right.
that's hard, right? And we
Hmm.
want to say discipline, right? And
Right.
discipline is a piece. And you being a professional fighter, your discipline's different than mine as an instructor, and
Of
all
course.
those different pieces. But
Right.
if someone was telling you they were thinking about fighting, and you could tell them something that they could do in 24 hours, what would you tell them?
Um, the biggest advice I could give, Race, I kind of already said it, but it's just if you want to pursue martial arts, if you want to pursue fighting, stuff like that, right, is get your foot in the door, right? Like that first day, like you don't even necessarily need to practice. You don't need to be throwing punches with the guys, right? Show up, get your foot in the door, go talk to the coaches, go talk to the other people, right? Watch a little bit, but once you're comfortable in that environment, it's so easy to come back, right? Because I even remember like when I went out to Colorado the first time, like I flew out there and my dad picked me up from the airport, and I remember telling him I was like, it was a Sunday, right? So high altitude wasn't even like really open, like there weren't like classes really that day. Um, but I was like, no, like I need to go to the gym and get signed up, right? Because it's like now it's easy, right? But when you're going into that new environment, like I'd been training for 7 years, 7, 8 years at that point, and I was still getting that, that faster heartbeat where you're like, oh man, like this is scary. Like it's a new gym, it's a new place. And it was like, so I had to make, take my own advice and just go, okay, I got to get my foot in the door. Where is this place? Right? Go talk to some people and just see the environment and get used to it. And then it was easy coming back after that, right? Now it's like, now I'm excited to go back there. Like that next day, I was like, yeah, I can't wait to go back. Like the place looks really cool. I can't wait to experience it. But as soon as I got my foot in the door and as soon as I started talking to people and got signed up, that nervousness was gone, right? It just, boom, like just gone. Um, so yeah, that's one of the biggest things you can do if you want to get into a sport like this is just get the ball rolling, right? Make a phone call, get your foot in the door. I like, being there in person personally. I like just showing up to the place, but if you are disciplined enough to where you can just make a phone call, get the gym times and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to go, more power to you, but get the ball rolling on it. Don't procrastinate, right? Don't be the guy who is going to sit there, come like December, right, or November and go like, "Oh yeah, my New Year's goal for this coming year is going to be this," and it's like, okay, why don't you just do it now? Like,
Mm,
why wait till January 1st? Just start the habit now. Like, you're missing out on 2 months of growth.
thank you for sharing that. Uh, Going to a new gym, you being a professional fighter, you still shared that that's a little scary. It's a little awkward, right? And
Right,
many times folks wouldn't think that you would have that going on, right? And
right.
even myself, when I went to Rising Sun, right, you guys are professionals and you guys all do it. And so there was a part of
Hmm.
me that was like, well, am I going to spend the whole time tapping? Right? Are they going to
Right,
let me play at all? You know what I mean?
right.
But quickly I found out that, yeah, that you guys totally would. And
Mm-hmm.
just showing up is probably the best advice, hands
Right.
down. I would almost, I'm gonna play devil's advocate now, okay?
Okay.
Right?
Absolutely.
So showing up, absolutely critical, right?
Yep.
But if somebody shows up and they want to watch, I would almost say don't watch more than twice before you do it.
Absolutely.
You think so? Okay.
It depends on the person too, obviously. Right. It always boils down to the variables. But um yeah, I think if you just keep showing up and watching, the more you just watch, the more comfortable you're gonna be not doing it.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, I understand, dip your toe, dip your toe into the deep end. Okay, it's not that cold. Okay, time to just jump into it, right? You don't want to sit there and do okay, I dip my toe, now I dip a foot, right? Like just get in the pool already, man. Like just dive on in, you'll be fine.
For sure. And the first day's experience might not be the second day,
Right.
right? I remember one time training with one of my teachers, and we had a class. It was just called self defense, and all we did was spar in that class. But
Mm-hmm.
the gentleman who owned the school would also use that as like an open house moment. And one
Sure.
day, these parents, two parents came in, and they had their 8-year-old. And as soon as they walked in, the door opened. My Sifu went for a low line kick, faked it, and kicked me right in the eye. And so they're all standing there looking, right? And they're like, what? And
Yep.
meanwhile, like, I got the wobbly knees. I'm looking at my teacher. I'm not really sure exactly what's happening, right? And he just says, that was Savat, French martial art. And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, I want to do that one someday, but I'm going to need a minute, you know? And then I thought, right at that moment, when those folks came in, that this other gentleman who's running the gym is thinking that is the most horrible, right? You couldn't have kicked him 5 minutes earlier or 5 minutes
Right.
later, you know?
Right. Right. Well, we've had incidents too where, people are there like watch like I remember one, it was a Friday night, so it was sparring, right? And a father and a son, I want to say, showed up to just watch, see the environment. And a couple of the guys were sparring, and I mean, literally going as light as you could possibly go. And one of the guys threw a head kick, and it caught the headgear, and the headgear like stuck to the guy's head. And instead of like moving his head, it split his skin, right? So he had like a big cut on his forehead,
Mm-hmm.
and he dropped to the ground, and he was just, I mean, immediately just blood everywhere. And it was like, oh, wonderful. Like, this is the visual that these two people are going to get. It's like, yeah, I don't think they came back after that. It's like, understandable.
And yeah, and the hard part is like those are the areas that bleed crazy, but they don't hurt or
Right.
injure very much.
No, not at all.
When I was interviewing Sam, I was like, he was fresh off of his last fight, and I'm
Hmm.
sitting there and I got this thing right on my nose because
Okay.
literally I had my nose smushed in the mat early,
Sure.
like 2 days ago.
Yep.
And when that happened, I came up and there was blood everywhere.
Yep.
But I wasn't even sure what happened. Like, was it the other guy? I
Yeah, you're
have
like, where am I
no
bleeding?
idea. Yeah, all I know is that, oh, it's this. And it took me like 25 minutes to stop the bleeding for the most weirdest little cut.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and that's, you look at like fighting in itself, right? Like, I remember the first time I got cut in a fight. I had the guy on the fence, and I just remember like seeing this dripping of blood. And I was like, oh, that's my blood. Like, I'm bleeding, right? And I didn't feel it. I didn't know it, but it's like I knew it was mine. And I finished the round. Went to the corner, and I remember like coach like talking to me, but like you could see he was focused on something else, right? But he was like, the normal conversation we have. And corners out, I stood up, and the ref looked at me. He's like, "Oh, that's a bad one." And I was like, "Sure." Like I literally don't know where I'm cut right now. Like I just know I'm bleeding. So right, it's funny because it's like the head stuff. you don't feel it most of the time, but it does not stop bleeding, right? Because it's your face. So it's just going to keep pumping out blood.
Exactly. So, sir, what does the daily life of a professional MMA fighter look like? Do you plan for recovery in the midst of those things? Do you plan specific days for specific tasks? Do you lift weights? And if so, do you do it on off days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm probably due to wrestling and then the military. I'm very by the book with a schedule. So, like for me, my daily schedule is I'm gonna wake up. If I have morning training, I'll go to morning training, and then after that, I'm gonna go lift weights. Then I'm gonna go for a run, and then I'm gonna come back home. I'm gonna eat and everything like that, obviously. Any recovery I need to do, right? If you need to ice something up, or I'm fortunate enough I have a sauna now in my
Mm-hmm.
basement,
Good.
so if I have to do a sauna session to loosen up the body, so be it. But that's kind of like my downtime, my chill time, and then it's back to the gym for evening classes, and that'll take me to 9:30, and then clean the mats, head back home, eat, go to bed, wake up and do it again. So it's nice because I've been doing it for so long that now I have like, okay, this is when I wake up, this is when I'm gonna eat, this is when I'm gonna be at the gym, this is when I come home, this is when I eat again. Like everything is so by the book now that it's like, it's very easy to keep a schedule.
Do you write out your schedule?
I did for a while, and now I really don't need to, just because it's like I know it so by heart that don't really need to write it down anymore.
That's perfect. Good scheduled structure. I
Yep.
was recently reading something. Maybe I saw an interview, but they were talking about Khabib. And one of the
Oh, sure.
things, yeah, that he was just adamant about train, go home, eat, take a nap.
Yep.
And that was like a really like, and if you listen to a lot of folks train relatively the same, but he was one of the only people that was like that, without a doubt, had to do that.
Right.
And I mean,
Yeah.
hot ass Dagestan, right? So he probably, you know what I mean. But do
Mm-hmm.
you plan for those recovery moments or anything like that? Or is it, I mean, my wife
Um,
can't nap. She's not made like
right.
that. Some people aren't made like that.
Right. I definitely do plan like sauna sessions or something that I'm gonna do. Like I will 100% put that in the schedule. I'm not someone who can nap. I know a lot of professional athletes that do. I remember watching a Sean O'Malley interview, and he was like, it was like jokingly, but he was like, "I'm the best sleeper in the UFC," and I was like, "Okay, that's funny, right?" Because it's a funny quote, but like he was doing that is he would train, then he would nap for recovery, and then he would be back to training. So it was a funny quote, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm not someone who can nap. I've struggled with like sleeping issues for a long time, which finally I got fixed. But yeah, I definitely do like if I'm like, man, okay, I'll even have like active recovery days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not so much in if I'm in a fight camp, but like out of fight camp, if I'm like, okay, like I don't necessarily need to run today, like, okay, I'm gonna go for a hike, right? Like I'm gonna do something that's a little less strenuous on the body,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still actively doing something, you know?
I just got a chance to really get to know you. We talked last night and earlier, and I just kind of figured that, especially with the military piece, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
um, I can nap as long as there's no light, right?
sure,
But my wife, literally, like she's just not made like that and can't nap.
right,
And I always thought
yeah,
that was fascinating that Khabib put all that time into that recovery piece like that, you know. But information's always on the move,
right,
right? Just yesterday, I had heard a new study that had said if you work out 4 hours before you go to bed, that's quite often harder to get to sleep.
yep, yep.
Information's on the
Right.
move. Everybody's got their own thing. What are you gonna do?
Yep. Well, and that's what makes like for a long time why I had sleeping issues was, it was like I train at night. By the time I get home, it's 11 o'clock at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like your body's not cooled down until 1 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, at the time I was working your, typical job and stuff like that. So it was like I had to be up around 6. And if it's like, dude, I'm not getting in bed till 1, by the time you fall asleep, it's 1:32. It's like, dude, you're gonna be lucky if you get 4 hours of sleep, and then you got to go work a blue collar job,
Yeah.
and then you got training after that. Like, good luck, man. Like, you're in for a long week.
Without a doubt. But if you meet somebody that has that schedule and they still go and train like that, man, by the time
Hmm.
they fight on Saturday, you got an animal in there.
Right.
Because there's
Yeah, they
so
are
many
ready to go.
pieces. So many
Yeah.
pieces. Well, brother, thank you so much for stopping in today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's amazing. And uh, a lot of folks at Affinity Martial Arts are a fan of yours. As a matter of fact, they
I
uh,
appreciate
they
that.
will. Yeah, I didn't say me. No, I'm just joking. Of course, I am. Right? I enjoyed just training with you a little bit, but
Uh,
there are a couple folks that will come in and they've been telling me how well you were doing, and you just came off a loss that happens to absolutely everybody, zigzag, whatever. Uh,
yep.
95% of that fight was all your side. Those things
Yep.
happen, and
Right.
God bless you. And we want to have you come back either before or after your next fight to talk to us a little
Yeah.
about it.
Absolutely. I would love that. That'd be a great time.
Excellent. Really appreciate you, Kyle. All right.
Yeah. I appreciate.
I appreciate you appreciating me. We appreciate each other. You're the man, Kyle.
Boom.
All right. This is Jamie Sparling and Mr. Kyle Zimick. We are signing off for the FormABLE podcast. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you have a question for Kyle, I just weaseled him into coming back. So leave a comment and I'll ask him on the next time I have him on the show. All right. FormABLE podcast. Jamie Sparling, Kyle Zimick. We're out. Thank you for watching.
There you go.